Hey, we made it. What's up? How you doing, people? It's another Sunday live stream. I'm double live for a little bit. I got my Instagram live going right over here to my right, but I'm going to click off from that in just a bit. But just wanted to inform some people about today's live stream. And let's see, do we have things working here? If you guys are out there, I'm not sure we're up and running yet. Yeah, there we go. We got some people saying hi. Okay, just making sure. Yeah, Instagram people, I'm going to be going over to exclusively YouTube in just a few minutes. I'm just doing double live for just a little bit. So I could have got my iPad and gone Facebook live too for triple. But yeah, people saying hi. How you guys doing? So yeah, some interesting things happening in the last week or so. I've been in the studio a lot, working on a collaboration project with a certain guitar player. I'll announce that soon. But it's a very interesting way to write a song. I'm doing drums first, ideas that I have, certain groove ideas and patterns, do them all in little bite-sized pieces, 8, 12, 16 bar phrases, just record those one at a time, send them off to this particular artist, and they're going to write a song around it. And then they're going to edit it together however they like. They can take the drums I recorded and edit it together, and then they're going to record something and send it back to me. And I'll learn that. And then we'll video record ourselves playing along to this newly finished song, and then we'll put that out as like a compilation sort of collaboration video, split screen. It's an artist in another country. So a lot of people do this. A lot of people record this way. It's interesting on two levels because I'm recording drums first and sending it to them, and they can rearrange and edit however they like. But then I'm also going to be doing the video part of it at some point. So, all right, a lot of people saying hey here. Hey, Bruce Elber, what are you guys doing? Hey, from Costa Rica. All right. All right. All right. We got drummers in here. We got, hey, Glen Sobel, Italia is here. All right. All right. Hey, Kevin, how you doing, man? All right. Got some friends on, got some new people coming in. Good to see. And what else is going on? What other questions do you guys have today? We got Alice dates coming up. We got our first show of the year. And our first show of the year is a huge festival gig in Mexico City. It's a festival. It's called Domination MX. We're headlining one night. Kiss is headlining another night. I can't remember who else is on the bill, but it's one of those festival lineups with a bunch of really great artists. So that show's on May 4th. That's coming up. And then right after that, myself, Tommy Hendrickson, and Alice, we fly back to LA and we go right into Hollywood Vampires rehearsals because we have 7 shows with that in May, including a lot of stuff on the West Coast, like LA, San Francisco, Las Vegas. Then there's Albuquerque, Denver, Phoenix area, Indio, California, which is kind of like Palm Springs. So there's a lot coming up. There's 2 different setups for those gigs, 2 different drum rigs for Alice and the Vampires. They share the same rack, but it all needs to be slightly tweaked for each gig. And it's a lot of logistical planning to get us and all the gear moved around to the right times and the right places. So there's some good stuff coming up for sure in May. And we're really looking forward to that. Have you thought about doing a stream of you reacting to drumming channels and giving feedback? Well, what is that exactly? Is that my commentary on other content? Is that what that is? I'm not totally sure, but you'd have to elaborate on that, on what that is. But yeah, there's definitely no shortage of content out there. I've been seeing more and more drummers putting up videos and lessons and some very pro-looking content with graphics and editing, using something maybe a little better than iMovie. That's what I've been using a lot. You can use iMovie on your phone to edit videos. In fact, it's amazing what you can do on your phone. as far as the editing and making posts, with graphics on it. It's an app called Spark Post that I use for that a lot. Adobe Spark Post. It's pretty amazing. Just in the palm of your hand, you can get so much work done. You don't necessarily need a laptop, which is what I'm doing this from right now. And I just wanted to tell people on Instagram that I'm going to be clicking off from that feed in just a little while. I'm doing YouTube right now. I'm double live, but I just want to let you know when I do click off, you can go to the link in my bio if you want to continue watching over on YouTube. But I could see in the mirror over here, because the phone is facing me, I could see people are chiming in on Instagram, but I'm going to be paying attention to the chat over here on the laptop. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming up. We've already had the tour announced of Alice and Hailstorm, special guests Motionless in White. That's going to be starting in July, which will be after about a week and a half or 2 weeks of Alice headlining shows. The first, I think, is 4th of July in Connecticut. That looks like that's going to be the first show that we have. So that's been announced. The Europe run has been announced a while ago, actually. Dates in the UK, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Netherlands, Latvia, I think, something like that. I've never been there before. But that's taking us up to mid-October right now. So, yeah, Alice is not interested in taking a break and relaxing. I guess none of us are, really. So we're very lucky that he still wants to work that much. So did I go to Nita's live show at the Whiskey? I didn't make it. I've had a busy week, and I did see the promoter for that show, and he offered to get me in and put me on the list. I didn't make it that night. I saw a video from it, and I saw a video of the meet and greet. It looked like it was a packed show. It was a hometown gig. So I know she was really happy to do that, to play the Whiskey, where we all went when we were kids to see bands. That's always been an all ages club, the Whiskey. So that's one of the first places where I saw a lot of different bands, right on the Sunset Strip. How was drumming on Tommy's Crucify? Referring to Tommy Lee's Roller Coaster. Yeah, people ask me that a lot. They ask, did I write it during the show? No, I didn't do that. That's like that was his personality. He had the headset mic on, and he was talking to the crowd the whole time, doing his thing. I wrote it during the day one time. Excuse me. I wrote it during the day, and boy, allergies acting up. Like I was saying, I wrote it during the day, and it's really difficult. I mean, like, he's been doing something like that upside down for 30 years or so. He had a lot of practice. I had a new appreciation for that and how difficult that is. It's not that just the playing upside down is the hard part. Of course, that's hard. Everything feels like it's farther away. But when you start turning upside down, the harness is all locked here, and it starts turning this way. And then the harness is like digging into your stomach, and it knocks the wind out of you. You can't breathe, and you got to play. And, and you're slightly coming out of the seat. You're not totally locked down into that. And, of course, the center of gravity is constantly changing. That was difficult, and I felt like really exhausted after doing that. So I knew, like, oh, this is why Mick Mars's guitar solo is right after the roller coaster drum solo thing, because Tommy Lee is in the back, and he's got the oxygen tank, which I totally get because I use one of those live between songs when there is a chance to do it, because an Alice show is famous for there being no break in the action. Alice doesn't talk to the crowd. He doesn't break character on stage. It's one song into the next, into the next. So from an endurance perspective, it's tough. So when I can, I grab that oxygen mask and I hit the button and I breathe in some fresh O2. And it really does help on certain nights, especially a theater where there's like smoke in the air from the pyro that we've used. So yeah, that was fun. There's video of me riding on Tommy Lee's roller coaster. If you click on search Glen Sobel coaster, roller coaster, you'll find it. Let's see. Can't wait to see you in Albuquerque. Had a blast in Anaheim and Phoenix. Oh, well, okay. Thank you. That's Jin Gin Wright. Hey, Chip Ritter's here. What's up? Do you guys know Chip Ritter? You got to look him up if you don't know. Juggling drumsticks and playing like not just any old groove, but playing all this double bass stuff and these 16th note grooves while, juggling drumsticks. He was on David Letterman years ago for the segment they call Stupid Human Tricks. And this was not stupid. This was amazing. And he's got a lot of videos out there playing at different events, NAMM shows, whatever. And what he does is really cool. But he's just a great player in general. Without all the tricks and the juggling, he's just a really spectacular player. Good buddy up in the Phoenix area. So yeah, check him out. Glad to see you here, Chip. Very cool. I'm getting behind here. Hi from Austria. You are a really inspiring drummer. There's a lot to learn from you. Oh, well, thanks. Not a question, but a statement. Thanks. I appreciate that. That's from Iris. Very cool. From Vienna. I wonder if that's someone connected to an artist that I recently did a recording session for. This was a file transfer session. An artist from Vienna, Dara Lucy is the name. She and her band, they were able to send us, that's us being me and Barry, who runs Riot House Studio in North Hollywood. They were able to send us tracks that they had recorded, and I put drums on the tracks, and they'll be finished sometime soon, but they'll get sent back to them after the drums are all finished, and it's pretty amazing. It's file transfer. You don't have to be in the same country to work with an artist. How cool is that? So let's see. Falling behind. A lot of people chiming in. Hey, Lily's here. Good to see you. Who else we got? Let's see. Hi, Glenn. Do you feel you have to lead the tempo feel in big shows, or is there an average time between the band? All right, you're talking about timekeeping. That is from Koo's Drummer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah, how do you figure out the time starting songs? Well, you know what I and a lot of people rely on is sometimes, not always, but sometimes at least starting the song with a metronome. Now, in the case of the Alice Show, I've got in-ear monitors. We all do on stage. And my drum tech, Michael, starts the drum machine. That's what generates the click track, the metronome. And he knows what the tempos are, the BPMs. And for certain songs, it'll just be there just to start it. Other songs, it'll be there maybe until the first verse or somewhere in the middle. Some songs, it's there all the way till the end of the song or close to it because it just works, right? But there's certain songs that doesn't work on. That's not going to work on No More Mr. Nice Guy or School's Out. And that's fine, because those songs, they have guitar intros anyways. So it's up to the guitar player to start and set the tempo. So we all got a good sense of tempo and time in the band, fortunately. It can be tough when you're drumming in a band with a guitar player that never practices with a metronome. So you don't know what you're going to get from night to night. If that guitar player is doing the intro of the song, it's just a mixed bag. You just don't know if it's going to be too fast, too slow. And it can be hard to kind of interpret or discern what the tempo should be. Like, let's say you're jet lagged, but your first show in Europe after arriving there 2 days earlier is playing for 50,000 people at a festival. Your perception of tempo and time can feel off. It might not be off, but it could feel strange because of the jet lag. So that's when those metronomes, they come in handy. It gives you the confidence that you are starting at the right pace and time. But you don't want that to ever become a crutch. That's what's important. You don't want to have to rely on that where you feel weird without it. So let's see. Wednesday's video. This is from White Grizz. Wednesday's video on Joan Jett. Can you explain how to count the time change from 4/4 to 2/4? I'm new to drumming and have never noticed the change. Well, isn't that interesting? See, you didn't notice it. Most people don't notice that kind of thing, musicians included. What this person is talking about is this new series of videos that I've been putting up. It's called How to Learn Songs Quickly for Drummers. It's basically how I chart songs out. How do I learn songs quickly? Coming into a recording session, sometimes there's zero rehearsal. In fact, most of the time there's zero rehearsal, but demos get sent and I have to show up. Could be 2 songs, could be 10, but I have to make cheat sheets of everything. It's not writing things out note for note. It's mostly knowing what the arrangement of the song is. And if it is a finished song, like in the case of this was I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett. What if you had to learn that? My point in making that video is that that's a song most of us have heard forever. It came out in the early 80s. And a lot of musicians, they would say, you know what? I got it. I know how to play this. I've heard this my whole life. No problem. Well, that's the wrong approach. You have to make a cheat sheet. And if you look at this particular video on my channel here, which you can subscribe to the channel, get the notifications when these videos are put up. But if you look at the video, I'm listening to the song and I'm writing out my chart in real time as I listen to it. So I'm constantly starting and stopping the song on my iPad, and I'm explaining why I'm writing out what I'm writing. And there are bars of 3/4 and 2/4 in this song, which you don't realize until you have to learn it. That's crazy. I mean, everyone sings along to this song. They don't realize they're singing all these different bars, but it's one of those deceptively difficult songs. And you realize when you start learning a lot of songs that this happens a lot. There's certain songs that have these 2/4 bars. That especially you won't notice because the snare drum backbeat, it wouldn't change necessarily, the 2 and 4. Like another one I think of is You Give Love a Bad Name, Bon Jovi. That has a lot of bars of 2/4 in it, but you wouldn't notice it until you had to learn the song. So that's part of why I write out charts. What was the exact question regarding that though? How to explain counting the change. Well, there's not much to explain. It's just simply you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you watch the video, I rewind a couple times in those sections to show how I count through those parts. And then, of course, you want to write out what the kick snare pattern is for the verse, pre-chorus, chorus. In that particular song, it's the same kick snare pattern throughout. There's no hi-hat or ride in the whole thing. Live, I was saying you probably would throw some hi-hat in there. You'd have to figure that out. But that's something drummers miss a lot as well. They come in with songs that they've supposedly learned, but they don't have the right kick snare pattern, which means they didn't listen. They didn't listen close enough, or they don't know how to listen for those kind of things. You have to be able to pick out the parts. That's an important part of being a pro player for any instrument, is being able to hear what your part is. It's going to be easier for drummers than guitar players. What if there's like 2 or 3 guitar parts on the record? Then you got to figure out which guitar player is going to do what. But for drums, it's all right there, unless the mix is really strange or it's a really old recording where it's hard to tell. But there's so many things out there now. There's all these isolated tracks online where, somebody got a hold of the master recording way back and then somebody uploads it. This happened a lot because of like the video games, Guitar Hero and Rockstar. They had to separate out tracks to put them into the game in order for people to be able to play the game and do the drums part or the guitar part, whatever. Well, engineers that got a hold of these master recordings, they ended up like leaking these tracks to certain people that would upload them to YouTube. And then there were apps that came out like Jam It, which unfortunately is not around anymore. But that was master recordings of songs. You could buy a song at a time, and you could isolate and hear the drums only, or everything without the drums, so you could play drums to it, or slow it down to half speed. Like Rush songs and Megadeth and Deep Purple, old stuff, new stuff. That was an amazing app. I'm sorry to see it go. But a lot of those tracks people ended up uploading online. So I remember I had to play a Van Halen song a couple months ago. We did one of our Soundcheck Live residency gigs at Lucky Strike. It's the gig I do once a month. And it was Nuno Betancourt as our special guest. He wanted to do Loss of Control by Van Halen. I love the song. It's one of the most difficult Van Halen songs there is. It's harder than Hot for Teacher. I think it is. Well, there's actually a YouTube track. You go on that website, go on YouTube. There's just a still photo, but it's the isolated drum track. You hear the music a tiny bit. It's the bleed from the headphones. Like the headphone sound coming from Alex Van Halen's headphones he was wearing when he tracked it, that bled into the drum mics. But yeah, you hear the drums by themselves. And that was a very great reference tool. It was a way to research the song. It's like, oh, I wouldn't have heard him play that exact little thing if I was just listening to the original recording. So I don't know how I got on that subject, but yeah, Jam It was cool. I'm sorry to see it go. But if you have to learn a song, check on YouTube to see if there's any isolated tracks that exist. But let's see, who else do we got? Yeah, Nita talks a lot about the metronome. That's good. That's great. Bruce is asking, what else comes through the in-ear monitors, the IEMs? Well, it's whatever you want. It's whatever you want your mix to be. For me, it's definitely going to be a lot of myself, kick, snare, toms, hi-hat, a tiny bit of overheads. Just, everything else, I try not to crowd the mix too much. The more things you put in there, the more distorted it could get. So I try to keep it not too complicated. But of course, I need a good amount of Tommy Hendrickson. He's starting songs like No More Mr. Nice Guy. Ryan Roxy starts Schools Out. I got to have enough of them. But the mix can change from song to song. We've got great monitor engineers. These are the guys that mix ears. That's the industry term. Like someone says, hey, who's mixing ears on your gig? That means who's running monitors for you. It's got to be someone that is very experienced in mixing in-ear monitors. So they have in-ear monitors. The monitor engineer that's to our left, stage left, off stage, and he can listen to what my mix is. He can switch over and hear what I'm hearing and adjust to my mix. And then if Tommy Hendrickson needs something, he can adjust, and all of a sudden his in-ear mixes are the same as Tommy's, and he can adjust that. And it could change from song to song. And the mixing board can be automated. You can go from song to song, and the faders will change by themselves. But there are some monitor engineers, they like to do it themselves. They want to do it manually. They like to mix. That's fine as long as they do a good job. But you can't have in-ear monitors and not have a good in-ear monitor guy. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to click off of Instagram right now. I've been on Instagram video for the first 20 minutes or so of this live stream. But if you guys want to continue on YouTube, go to the link in my bio on Instagram. It'll take you straight to the live feed here. But I appreciate it. I'm going to click off from this. Good to see you guys. Oops. All right. Cool. So I'm falling behind a bit. Let me see. Oh, somebody put the roller coaster link in there. Okay. Thanks for that, Bruce. Can you show a rudiment or two? Well, sure, I could do that. Absolutely. Got my drum pad here. It's interesting that you say a rudiment or two, because really, when you think about it, there's only two rudiments. This is like an old jazz guy saying, there's only two rudiments, a single stroke and a double stroke, because everything else is a combination of those. If you think about it, okay, you've got singles, they're self-explanatory, single strokes. Right, left, right, left, right, left, over and over. And then there's a double stroke. Again, self-explanatory. Right, right, left, left, over and over. So those two are where you want to start. You don't want to go to paradiddles, double paradiddles, Swiss triplets. You don't want to go there yet until the single and double are pretty good. And a paradiddle, if you think about it, it's single, single, double. It's single, single, double. Single, single, double. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. A Swiss triplet is a double stroke, but two of the notes are connected as a flam. So you got, those are Swiss triplets, but if I separate the two, see, it's a double stroke, but two of the notes are connected as a flam, which itself is another rudiment. Those are flams. Swiss triplet. So the best exercise that you can do, and I've explained this before on this live stream, and probably to just about every student I've ever had, you want to do the exercise where you go back and forth from singles to doubles, 1 bar of each. So it'd be like singles, doubles, singles, doubles, back and forth. And then you increase the tempo. And then you want to use a metronome for that. You can use a metronome app on your mobile device. This is all stuff that can be done without a drum set. So that's where you want to start with rudiments. There's so many that are out there, and there's hybrid rudiments, but without the singles and doubles, it's not going to come together. So definitely falling behind here. A lot of people chiming in. Glad to see that. As a musician, how do you feel you can make a difference in music education? Thanks for that. That's from Zildjian65. Well, one way is doing live streams like this. I try to make this live stream something that's more of an unfiltered music, business, education type of live stream. Like, I want people to hear the real deal. And it's a mixed bag what I'm doing. I'm talking drums, obviously rudiments, but I'm talking about things that happen on tour, in-ear monitors. I'm talking about sometimes things like record deals, networking, meeting people. It can go either way. But as far as doing drum clinics, I try to integrate a lot of what I'm talking about here into drum clinics that I do. They're seminars. But a lot of that is going to depend on the questions that I get from the audience. But I just always believe that having like a healthy dose of real world music business experience thrown in with the paradiddles and the different grooves and patterns, that's important, because the question is, what do we do with all this? Everything we're learning drumming wise, when it comes to getting gigs, being a pro player, what is it you really need to do or not do in those cases? I tried to tie all that together as best I can. So who else do we got? Hey, Dara Lucy is here. All right. That's the artist that I was recently recording for in Vienna. Really cool stuff, what she's got going on. Me and Barry, the engineer, we really saw it as a challenge. I have video of us doing it, like behind the scenes video, making this, doing these songs. Problem is, I just got a new iPhone the other day. I got the iPhone XS Max, and not all of my pictures and video were brought into my phone. So I don't know, I might have lost that video, but if I find it, I'll put it up as sort of a quick little video, a behind the scenes thing. This was a very light hitting session with very slow tempos, which is its own challenge in a way, and different sounds. A lot of the challenge was figuring out drum sounds. Dara had the idea of playing drums with mallets. I said, yeah, that sounds like that could work. And we started experimenting with the mallet sound on snare and toms, and then different dampening techniques, towels on the drums. Or I took like an old snare head and just turned that upside down and put that on the floor tom. When I had a part where I was riding on the floor tom, that worked. It muted the floor tom just enough, and it gave it some extra low end because the head has some weight to it. And that worked for one particular song that we were doing. So yeah, that was a fun session. Hopefully I'll recover that video. Oh, Dara says, thanks for mentioning us. Can't wait to hear the rest. Great. So it looks like you've been sent some of this so far. Very, very cool. How would I chart Over the Mountain intro? That's from David. So you're talking about the Ozzy Osbourne song, right? You're talking about how would I chart it? That's a specific drum intro. That's a fill. So that would be literally transcribing it. How would I transcribe the song? Those are triplet 16ths. It's the old bottom lick. You know, if you haven't heard the song, you can find it online. but I would chart those out. They're triplet 16ths, which is 6 per beat. The tempo is this, and the actual intro, it's like, and yeah, it's kick, snare, and then rack tom, floor tom, and there's hi-hat going on left foot, I believe. It's been a while since I've heard that, but that's something you would have to transcribe, and you'd have to listen to it enough times until you hear what's going on, and you'd want to play it pretty much the same if you were to play that as a cover tune. So yeah, great drum intro. That's Lee Kerslake on drums, a very underrated drummer. Didn't get enough credit for playing on a lot of those classic Aussie solo records in the early days of his solo career. Have you put any of the 3-4-2-4 on the new Hollywood Vampires record? Is there anything like that on there? Nothing I could think of offhand, but there could be. I don't know. You'd figure I would know that, but I'm not hearing anything like that I can remember. That record is hopefully coming out by around June or so. I don't have a release date yet, so when I know, you guys will know. Let's see. This is from James. Glenn, as I hit my late 40s, I still love hitting hard. As you are a master at high intensity playing, thank you. Any warm-up or exercise tips for avoiding injury without sacrificing intensity? Yeah, well, that's warming up that maybe doesn't have as much to do with hitting the pad. It's important to warm up the hands before playing. But what I do before shows so often with Alice or whatever rock gig, I'm definitely moving around, and I'm doing stuff like this for 5 minutes to get the blood flow up here. You know, maybe it doesn't look cool, but you know, it's what I've been doing for years. Do that, and then there's certain stretches I do for neck, shoulders, back, whatever. It all really helps, and you have to have some kind of regular routine with working out, the gym, whatever. You can't have your workout just be playing the show. That's not enough. It's great cardio, no doubt, playing a rock show. You're sweating a lot. Sometimes it feels like I lose 5 pounds after playing an Alice show. You got to keep the calories up, the good calories. But I feel like when I'm on tour, if I'm able to get something of a workout in during the day, it could be quick in the gym at the hotel, which we're lucky to be at hotels that have a gym, decent gyms. It could be 20 minutes on a treadmill, nothing fast, you know, power walk into a light jog, 20 minutes, maybe a little bit of weightlifting if there's time. But I feel like when I do that, some kind of workout during the day, nothing intense. But when I do that, the show feels easier. My body is just more warmed up. So that's something that occurs earlier in the day. That's not right before the show. I wouldn't want to do a workout right before, but yeah, it's something you have to think about, especially if you're not 18 years old anymore and you have to think about being able to maintain and play 100 shows a year. That's like what we do on the Alice gig. We're doing average 90, 100 shows. And as a drummer, you got to think about this. How am I going to keep this up without my body just becoming broke down, right? So just a little bit of how I do it. Let's see. Alexander, how to know which metric has a song? Like, for example, Shadow and Soul of Red Band. Well, I think what you're asking about is how to figure out the tempo of a song. Is that what it is? Because I'll tell you what. Let me grab my phone here. What you can do, you get your metronome app out. And in this case, I'm using an app called Metro Timer. If you could see that, I don't know if the glare of the light is too much, but that's Metro Timer. And there's a feature on here, this button right here, tap tempo. So let's say a song is this tempo. So you hit tap. It's about 110 BPM. And I don't think that's coming through. I can tell that, yeah, the glare is making it so you can't see. But yeah, that says 110. So after I've established the tap tempo, I'll just hit play. There's the tempo right there. I've got an accent on every one. 1, 2, 3, 4. You could set it to do different accents, or they could be all accents, no accents. Let's say a song is this tempo. (139 BPM). That's what it comes out as. Let's say a song is, it's like a boom, ba, boom, ba, like a 1, 2, 3, 4. I would want to do an 8th note click. If it's a heavy song, but it's like a halftime feel, ba, ba, I'd want to go in 8th notes. 152. Now we've got a tempo to start a song in halftime, but the click, the metronome, is double time. That's another important trick to remember when you're getting tempos for songs. And if I got to do a gig where there's minimal or no rehearsal, you better believe I'm going to be using that, or my iPad I like using, because apps like that, they show up bigger on the iPad, obviously. So the play button, the play and stop button, it's usually the same thing. I can easily reach over while I'm playing, you know. I can reach over and I can turn it off. I've gotten used to doing that. If there's not someone there to do it for you, like a drum tech, a lot of the time that's part of their job, is to start and stop metronomes. So yeah, that's how I get tempos for a song. Will Vampires go to Europe in 2019? I don't know. I know that between the 3 guys, Johnny, Joe, and Alice, it's hard to get scheduling together where all 3 people have a window of time to play. With Alice, we got a lot more stuff booked this year. I know Aerosmith's working, and Johnny with whatever movie schedules he's got. I really don't know about Europe for 2019. Possible for next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So, hey, Vic Chalfant is here. Excellent photographer. There's a lot of images you see of me out there that are Vic's photos, either live shots or behind the scenes, backstage stuff. Maybe I haven't been so great at crediting Vic. I got to credit photographers. I know a lot of people, they get mad about that, but Vic deserves credit. He's doing good stuff, really great stuff. Loving your Sobel Sundays, he says. Great info, answers, and stories. Keep up the great work, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for that, Vic. Definitely see you soon. I'm falling behind a little bit again. Thanks for all these nice compliments. You guys are too cool. Garrido, that's Eduardo. I know Eduardo. Hey, Glenn, how much time in advance you know your tour schedule for the year, and how you manage to not have schedule conflicts with other projects you may want to be a part of? Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. With Alice Cooper, fortunately, we know things pretty far in advance, sometimes as much as, I don't know, 9-10 months in advance. That's pretty good. But I've definitely been a part of other tours where you don't find out anywhere near that far in advance. And sometimes you're on tour and dates get added to the tour that you're on. Everyone's got their own way of running things. But you try to not have conflicts. Does it happen? Of course. I mean, I could get called about a certain gig. They want to know available dates that I have for something that's coming up several months from there. And I may say, oh, you know what? I'm going to be away. I remember doing Thomas Lang's Big Drum Bonanza in 2016, which is coming up again. That's his drum camp, where it's Thomas, of course, and then he gets a few other drummers involved. And it's like this 4 or 5 day thing. It's a great time for people. But Thomas would ask me every year, maybe starting in 2013 or 14, he started asking several months in advance, are you available for the Big Drum Bonanza? I'd say, well, I hope. What date is it? Thanks for asking. That's amazing. He'd say, it's July something. I'd say, we're away. That's too bad. Well, finally in 2016, early 2016, he asked, you think you'd be available this year? It's July 10th, whatever it was. And I got back to him. I said, you know what? For the first time, I'm actually available. I love it. I see that we get back from Europe and we're on a break. We get home like July 2nd. It was something like that. So I was really happy to be around for that. So You just have to sort of figure things out, juggle things. It's a good problem if you have that kind of conflict, if you're working enough that people are asking you about availability, if they're offering you gigs. But sometimes things fall through. You say you're available, but then like your main gig, in my case, Alice, your main gig changes something. Like there was this 1 week break, but then a couple shows got filled in, and I got to call someone back and say, oh, you know what? I told you I was available for that recording session, but unfortunately now I'm not going to be available on that date. We're going out an extra 4 days early on tour. If you can move the session, great. If you can't, I totally understand. You'll have to get somebody else. But that's happened before too. You just have to cross your fingers that things do work out. So yeah, very good question. Hope I will see you in Hungary with the Hollywood Vampires. Well, that'd be great. We did not get there last year, but we have played there with Alice. Is the Moeller technique something that you use? That's from Bruce. You know what? Every day on everything. Moeller technique. It's basically, it's a whipping motion. And if you're playing eighth notes on the hi-hat that are just at that speed, that's a form of Moeller technique. I call it 2 notes for the price of 1. You got the 1 on the way down, and then you get 1 on the way up. Like for one-handed 16th note grooves. I'm not going, I'm kind of doing this sort of, it's like a throw of the stick. Now you could get 3 notes for the price of 1. That's what I call it. 1 on the way down and 2 on the way up. For triplets. And of course you want to work on it with left hand as well. You put them together. So it's kind of a weird angle. I can't get this snare stand to go any lower. It's like at my waist level or above. It's tough. But yeah, Moeller technique I absolutely use. It's something that many drummers do some form of, but they might not even be aware of it. But it's something, there's this phrase that drummers use a lot, economy of motion. It means that you're wanting to get the most out of the movements that you make. You don't want to do any unnecessary motions when you play behind the drums. It might just create a lot more work for you as a drummer. Now, no doubt when I play a show, things get a little more animated and bigger with what I'm doing, but that's a show. That's a different situation from certain drum solos or playing in the studio. But all these techniques, Moeller technique or the timpani grip, all this stuff is supposed to help you sound and play better. So that's the idea. That's number one. That's the number one priority. I crack you up answering the 3424 question. Well, I hope. Oh, thanks for answering. I hope that I hope I was able to shed some light on that. Do you set up your own gear outside Alice and the Vampires? Sometimes. Sometimes there's certain gigs around town that will happen where sometimes there's a house kit at the venue or the studio, which is great. That means it's a whole lot less gear you have to take with you. But yeah, that happens all the time. There's certain studios where I'm either bringing a small drum kit or they have a house kit there, but I got to bring extra things like cymbals, pedal, snare drums. And yeah, I got to set that stuff up. There's not necessarily someone there to do it for you, like a tech. And for studio, if it's a house kit, you have to set it up to where it's comfortable for you, and no one's going to do that better than you are. So yeah, that's something that you can't be above doing that. I'm very lucky on tour to have a great drum tech that sets things up, and it's this big rack system. It's complicated, and we're able to just show up as a band, do our sound check, play the show. It's great, but it's still something I do all the time, setting up and breaking down gear. Just wanted to say hi And thank you so much for doing these live videos. Oh, no problem. All these facts definitely help me as a musician. Hope all is well. That's from Lyric Burke. Well, no problem at all. No problem at all. Just fire. Thank you. That's from Victoria. What app is that? Is that the metronome app you were asking about? It's called Metro Timer. You can try Subdivide if you're looking for metronome apps. If you just type in metronome into the App Store on your mobile device, you'll probably find like a dozen at least different options on that. And most of them are free, or maybe they're $1 or $2. Aerosmith are in Vegas, and I know you're coming with Alice in Europe. See you again in Germany. Yeah, Aerosmith just started their residency in Vegas. I heard it's this giant production. The great thing about residencies is it's not going on tour. It's staying in the one place. So this massive set can be built and it just stays there. They don't have to worry about breaking down and transporting it every show. So apparently the Aerosmith production is pretty amazing for the residency gig. Hopefully I'll see one of these shows. Steve Cortez asked, do you use your cheat sheet for every gig, or usually for the bands you do not play with regularly? Or for constant refresher, do you find having to adapt your playing or style for locations or bands? Well, yeah, I use the cheat sheet for sure on newer gigs, especially the gigs that are like my residency gig in Los Angeles, where every time is a different list of songs and there's just sound check rehearsal. So everybody has to show up having done their homework. For me, the homework is making the cheat sheets, and maybe I'll play along to those while I'm plugged into my phone. I'm playing along to the song while I have the cheat sheet on a music stand. But I've done that at big concerts, going on short tours with an artist that's not Alice, or I have used them with Alice. I've got that 14-inch floor tom to my left. Sometimes it's just a glorified music stand. I have a chart there. We've added songs in the middle of tour where we'll just rehearse it at sound check. And I want to have the cheat sheet there, whether I think I need it or not. It's just a little bit of a security blanket. And, I do the same thing. I highlight the choruses. I do all that. So yeah, that's been the thing it's kept me working. So yeah, I always have those ready to go if I need them. And they help you memorize the song. The act of charting out a song, making a cheat sheet, it helps you memorize it. Oh, and the other part of that question was define having to adapt your playing or style for locations or bands. Yeah, of course. Every artist you play with, you're going to do something different, whether it's in your playing or your setup, your dynamics. Everybody's got their own thing that they do. The Alice gig, it's a very loud, hard-hitting gig. But like playing with Richie Sambora, still a rocking gig, but it had that blues rock element to it where it was a lot more laid back in certain ways. So I wasn't playing as hard on most songs, but fun gig, and you adapt to each situation. Have I heard of a band called the Helicopters? I have. I can't tell you anything about them. I've definitely heard the name. Are they from Europe, I think? It's from Volvo. Love your live videos and the others too. I hope I can get to come and see and meet you and the others when you're with Alice in Texas. Yeah, we do have shows coming up in Texas. Love how you can twirl your sticks as you're playing. Well, thanks. That is from Mary. Appreciate that, Mary. Garrido. Glenn, can you talk a bit about playing on top of the beat, I assume you mean, on the pocket and behind the beat, and how you practice that? Yeah, how do you practice playing on top of the beat, behind the beat? Yeah, what is that? That's a mystery to a lot of drummers. Sometimes the song is going to dictate what that is and how you're going to play to it. Like most Zeppelin songs, they're going to be more behind the beat. They're big, they're heavy, but they've got that real laid back feel to them. So if you play Kashmir by Zeppelin, that's behind the beat. Absolutely. Or Holy Diver by Dio, very behind the beat. Heavy, but behind the beat, no doubt. But if you play a Police song, let's say you're playing Message in a Bottle, that's got a very urgent, on top of the beat kind of feel. Or Rebel Yell by Billy Idol. Again, it's a fast tempo, but it's also got a very on top of the beat kind of feel to it. You have to think about these things. How are you playing and interpreting that groove? You can go on and on with song examples, but I do think that's the best way to do it. And it seems like on top of the beat can sometimes be the hi-hat eighth notes being more equal, like you're not doing the molar technique, but more like you're playing the hi-hat with more of an urgent thing where every eighth note is accented as opposed to every downbeat. So yeah, think about it through the songs that you listen to. Let's see. I'm an amateur drummer. Just want to thank you for the How to Learn Songs Quickly series. I'm glad you like that. That's from Alexander. It really opened my mind and changed my way to learn songs. Thank you for that. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. Could you please show how Halo of Flies starts? I'm trying to learn that song. I love it. That's from Glen Sobel, Italia, a fan page on Instagram. How does Halo of Flies start? It starts with the cymbal. Wait a second. Let me move around here. Halo of Flies. It starts with that's how it starts. Halo of Flies is this song that's basically like 5 songs in one. There's tempo changes. There's a lot of dynamics. It's got the drum solo in it. It's got this whole instrumental section where Alice is not on stage. He gets a nice long break. But that's the beginning of the song. And then it goes into, let's see. It's got many different grooves and many parts. I got a 3-piece kit here. Kind of hard to play all the tom parts on the kit. But yeah, Halo of Flies is like the big challenge of all the Alice songs. But that very beginning intro, those are single strokes. It's like a 5-stroke roll, but as single. So it's... So, yeah, it's considered to be like the holy grail of Alice songs. I assume that's what you mean by the intro of Halo of Flies. Let's see, have I ever heard of Rival Sons, rock band from Huntington Beach? They're from Huntington Beach. I've definitely heard the band. I didn't know they were local to Southern California. Yeah, Rival Sons. I know they've been on the tour circuit for quite a few years now. They've been the opening act on a lot of big tours, which is great for them. And I know they play in Europe a lot, very classic rock inspired newer band. So yeah, hopefully they'll keep going for a long time. Who else do we have? Oh, thanks, from Glen Sobel, Italia. I guess I had the right part. This is from, it looks like, Sal Hansen. How did you develop your style of drum fills, and how long did it take you to get so good at the stick twirls and flips? Huge fan of yours. You're one of my main drum influences in drumming. Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. I'm flattered. How did I develop? Well, there's a lot of answers to that. Drum fills. There's many different kinds of drum fills. I really was into the rudiments. Like I was talking about a lot earlier, the rudiments, single strokes, double strokes, paradiddles, 6-stroke rolls. People want to know, why do you have to learn rudiments? Well, that's like the words that are in drumming, and you use those rudiments, those words, to construct sentences. And you can take a paradiddle or any rudiment and you can move it around the drums and figure out ideas. So that's why you want to work on those rudiments. And I was really into that as a kid. I know a lot of kids that have not been into that. To them, it's a drag. They don't want to practice that. They just want to rip on the drums. Well, if you want to rip on the drums, you got to learn that stuff. It's the basics. And I definitely have always had a lot of influences. lots, like really from jazz to really heavy rock and metal tunes. You got to have a diverse list of drummers and styles of music that you listen to. Otherwise, you're just going to come off sounding like a clone of somebody else. If you just like Metallica, well, someone will hear that in your playing, right? So you want to take from everything. That's been an important element of me developing as a musician. I'm still developing. It never ends. So, yeah, what was there another part to that question that I missed? That was a good question. The stick twirls, right? Stick twirls and flips. I was in marching band in high school. So we definitely did some of that in marching band. And I always tell people you don't want to do this on the wrong gig. But yeah, it was always me working on this type of stuff. Or we do the back sticking. And I haven't used that as much lately, but there would also be other drum corps instructors that we'd have. They'd come to teach us, maybe temporarily. And I would always ask these guys to show me stuff. And it wouldn't always be things that my drum line would end up using, but I would use it for something. And that's where a lot of that came from. And for me, it's that twirl where it's kind of like just, it's not going through the fingers, really. You know, there's people that definitely use that one. For me, it's the one where it's like the cigar grip, I call it, you know, where it stays in between. And there is a video of me on YouTube. It's on my channel here. It's just like a 1-minute clip from me at a drum festival in Mexico years ago. And somebody asked me that question. I talked about how you use these two fingers to get the stick going like this. And then you use your index finger to get it turning to your right. Other people might do it opposite of me, but that's how it's always been. For the right hand, the left hand, same deal. And then the trick is getting a hit between each one. That's the hard part, getting a solid hit. And then how do you mix it into what you're playing? You know, you have to be able to set it up in certain ways. You don't want it to ever affect the flow of what you're doing. That's super important. Love Halo Flies. Heard it at every Alice show I've seen so far. I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. That's good. It's a tiring song because it ends up being with the drum solo over 10 minutes. Do you know that you can make your own soft mallet sticks by threading the cymbal felt on your regular drumstick? Yeah, that's a good idea. Sure. That's actually a good idea. For this last session I did where I was using mallets, what I had were the kind of mallets that you play on a vibraphone. So they're lighter. They're just like these real thin sticks. And it's just definitely a different feel getting used to that. But they had a really nice effect on not just the drums, but the cymbals crashing on that and playing a light bass drum underneath. Totally different from playing with a stick. So it just, you never know what's going to work when you're in the studio. So that worked really well. Hug from Argentina. Oh, great to see you. You don't like those eyeglasses. Vision is second thing to go. Hey, you know what? Chicks dig the eyeglasses. They do. But what time do we got here? 1 o'clock. There's definitely some good questions today. I appreciate what's coming in. I see more people coming. I'm going to be getting out of here soon, but why did you drop a rack tom on the new setup? How does that affect the sound? I changed my setup slightly last year, the Alice setup. There's one rack tom right now. It used to be 12, 13. Right now it's just a 12. I like changing it up, and it does make certain things easier. The ride cymbal, when you got the 2 rack toms, the ride cymbal is here, and you know your arm is stretched out, and especially if you have to play the bell, right? So on the Hollywood Vampire setup, that was last year. It was single kick, 1 rack tom, 2 floors on the left, or 2 floors on the right, 1 on the left. I got used to that, and then I said, well, why don't we try this with the Alice setup? It's got the 2 bass drums. What if we put the 1 rack tom there? We tried it, and it ended up working. I don't think anybody in the band noticed a difference in the sound. I just had to figure out a couple of new ways of playing certain things, like Halo Flies. That's got all those tom rolls, those 16th note tom parts. So I just had to make adjustments on things like that, or on Billion Dollar Babies, another song that uses a lot of toms. But it did change it up and make it fresh again, which was great, which was very cool. So I don't know, maybe I'll change it up again this year. I have no idea. But that's one reason that I did that I changed the tom configuration. Do I like playing diverse styles? Yeah, I think most drummers would answer yes to that. For some reason, drummers like exploring and playing different styles. At least they like checking out different styles. There's always something you could take and put it into what you do. If you watch a traditional jazz drummer, but you don't play those gigs, you might find something that you could somehow use or manipulate into something that you can use. So that just goes along with having an open mind. You really have to check out as many people. And I know, like in music schools, there's students that will come to MI, a place like that, Musicians Institute, and they'll come in, they're just like, yeah, I just like metal, man, just heavy speed, you know, and they'll come out of the school loving sambas, Brazilian sambas, right? Because their eyes were opened to this kind of music, because you have to take certain classes. They're prerequisites, or they're requirements to graduate. So you get exposed to different styles. That's the idea. You don't want to just stay closed in your one little corner of the music universe. So let me see. Johnny says, since cancer treatments, I'm having issues playing double bass. I've changed pedals and beaters, but is there a good way to practice and maybe gain more momentum and playability with my right knee? Well, that's very cool that you're playing drums. I'm sure that's a big help in getting healthy. Drums it's a great workout, mentally, physically. With double bass playing, for me, it definitely is about the metronome. That's a really strong part of playing double bass, especially for endurance and playing even. There was a word you used in there, momentum. Yeah, that's important. If you want to play the 16ths, and they can be difficult to do slow, to keep 16th notes consistent at a slow tempo. You want to be able to play slow. If you can't do it slow and evenly, you're not going to be able to do it fast and evenly. So slow could be something like something as slow as that. It could be about 100 BPM. Set your metronome for that and get that nice and even. 100 will be somewhere around. And balance is a big thing. How do you keep your balance while you're doing that? You figure this stuff out at the slower tempos. So make sure you got your metronome app going. You got your headphones in so you can hear it loud enough. And maybe think about doing 1 foot at a time. Check this out. This is for anybody that's really wanting to improve their accuracy with double bass. Let's say you play just the right foot. If you're doing this, play just the right foot. You'd be playing 8th notes with the right foot. What if you were to just isolate the left foot by doing this? Right, my left foot is playing on the E's and the U's. That means 16th notes. Counting 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... That's an exercise I've been doing forever, and it really helps to do it with a metronome. You might find, if you're right-handed, that the left foot is a little bit weaker. That's why you have to work on this side twice as much, right? So I know if I get too loud on the drums, it could get distorted in my external mic here. But yeah, double bass, there's many aspects to that. And the metronome is going to tell you whether or not you're on the money, whether or not you're being accurate. You might realize that you're rushing something, or you might realize that your left side, your left foot is a little bit weaker or isn't good at playing those syncopated E's and U's. It's not as good as your right foot. So you work on it. And it's really great. It's a great workout. It really is. Thank you for hanging out with us, fans. Oh, well, no problem at all. See you soon in Houston. All right. What do you think 10-13 rack tom setup like David Garibaldi? I use this setup. 10 and 13. You know what? I do that. I do that sometimes for drum clinics. 10, 13 rack and maybe 16, 18 floor, or 14, 16 if that's what they have. When you do drum clinics, you're in a store and it's what that particular retail outfit has. But I do 10, 13 because, yeah, I want that 10 for that high-pitched tom, which can be for more fusion type drumming, but I want a 13 so I can have something that's like deeper for a rock sound. I'm trying to split the difference. In drum clinics, I'm playing drum solos and things that might be a little more jazz fusion-ish, but I'm also playing along to rock songs. I've got tracks I play along to. I got like a Alice Cooper medley play along to that. So I don't want 10, 12. 10, 13 is kind of a way of splitting the difference. I didn't know that Dave Garibaldi did that. It's very interesting. He's one of my bigger influences, no doubt. I've learned your twirling style, but the stick moves down towards the butt of the stick. Suggestions? The stick sits right in the V of my fingers. Is this correct? It is. And right, I know what you're saying. The more you do this, the more it ends up down to where you're like this. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I have a way of kind of adjusting and moving it back up the stick if I'm doing this. If it's just a constant motion like this, then yeah, it's going to move and it's going to end up doing that eventually. I'm kind of over exaggerating it here, but just to get that one hit. If I'm playing and I can hit a crash or snare with a single hit, I'm not as worried about the stick moving in my hands. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. I guess I do have a way of trying to just get it back towards the center or close to it to where it's not going to fall out of your hand. So, and again, don't let it interfere with the flow of what you're playing. That's so important. Let's see. We'll take a couple more here. Thanks for the response to my question. I wish you all the best on upcoming gigs. Thank you. And we will be back in Canada. I think we're going to be back there this year. I saw some dates. Looking forward to that. I sometimes feel tempted to actually try to follow along, but then I remember it's 10, 11 p.m. here, and I live in an apartment building. What, you can't set up drums in your apartment? Your neighbors would love it, especially at 11 p.m. I'd probably have people show up with pitchforks at my door. Do you play punk too? Yeah, I definitely have done that. Actually, Tommy Hendrickson and I were in a band together in the mid-late 90s where Tommy was the front man and he was playing bass, lead singer and bass. And that was a pop punk kind of thing called POL. And we played locally. The band had a deal on Giant Records, but by the time I joined the band, that deal wasn't there anymore. But yeah, that was definitely a very punk-inspired gig with very accessible melodies going on. Good songs, good melodies. Recently, I did a recording session for somebody at East West in Hollywood. It's a really nice recording studio, big room we recorded in. The room where it's known to some people as the Frank Sinatra room, where he did Strangers in the Night with the orchestra. We filmed Hired Gun in that room, where I do the drum solo in the Hired Gun movie, the documentary. But that was a punk pop kind of session, up-tempo, a lot of 16th note fills where the notes have to be very accurate on the snare as rim shots. And fast tempos, and very on top of the beat type of grooves in a lot of cases. Not everything, but yeah, maybe it had something in common with bands like Green Day, bands like that. Definitely a big drum sound, not a thin, high-pitched snare kind of sound. It definitely had a nice drum sound that we got. So I'm really excited to hear that finished product from that particular artist. So thanks for the insights, Glenn. I actually have Ringo syndrome. I'm lefty playing a right-handed kit. Yeah, that's a thing. There are a lot of drummers that do that. That's not a bad thing. It's not a syndrome. As long as you know how you're going to approach playing fills. Like I would ask a question to you. If you have to play 6/10 notes, a 6/10 note hi-hat groove, are you leading with your left and right or right? There are drummers, they're right-handed, but they're left-handed just for their hands, but with feet, they're right-footed. This gets confusing. They play on a right-handed kit. They play 6/10, but it's left-hand lead. So they're crossing under their right hand for the backbeat. It's weird, but I would say that is okay. You don't want to mess with that as long as you know the strategy of how you're going to get into and out of fills. I've had students before teaching all these years. I've had students that do that. They play open-handed, I guess you could say. Like their hi-hat's right here, snare is here, and instead of crossing like this, they're playing like this. Now, that's fine as long as it sounds consistent. You don't want to force that. I know there's a lot of players that talk about the importance of playing ambidextrous. You should be able to play like this and like this. I say, you know what? You don't have to do that. There are a lot more important things to work on. You want it to sound good right-hand lead if you're right-handed. And there's guys, they put their ride cymbal up on the left. If it works, it works. But when it comes to fills, moving around the drums, if your toms are set up like a conventional drum set, I sometimes see students, they come out of fills differently. Sometimes they end a certain fill with their right, sometimes they end it with their left. And I'll say, wait a minute, which way is it that you think works best? Because I don't think you have figured that out yet. And especially that could be a problem on certain things like these kind of fills that involve the Herta rudiment, the moving around the drums with that, or certain things with flams. Taking something like that and going from left to right on the drums, or opposite, right to left. You have to be good at that too. But that could be a problem. Or if you're right or left-handed, sometimes there's certain double bass things where I see students start sometimes with their right, sometimes with their left. And I'll say, well, you have to decide. You have to actually pay attention and focus on which way is going to work best. If you just randomly go at it, then you're never going to have confidence in your playing. So the lefty thing, it's okay as long as it works for what you're doing. You don't have any struggles with it. It might be an adjustment in your setup. I don't know. But then I ask, what happens if you got to sit in? If you're at some gig or party, that's how you meet musicians. You sit in on the kits. And I've known one or two drummers. They're like, oh, no, I can't sit in. That's a regular drum set. I need my drum set with the stuff on the left side set up a special way. Otherwise, I can't really play comfortably. So you have to think about these things. That was a really good question, or actually just a good statement about the Ringo side of things. Okay. Good. All right. So we're coming up on about 1:15 here. And looks like, okay, there's just a few people that are chiming in still last minute. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming on here, asking good questions. Hopefully I'll be able to do this from the road. It really depends on a lot of things. It depends on, of course, our travel schedule and whether or not we might be sound checking at at 3 p.m. If it's excuse me. My voice changed all of a sudden. If it's 3 p.m. on the East Coast, it's noon here in LA, and I want to be consistent about the time. So a couple more people here. Thanks for being such a drumming inspiration. I saw you playing with the Vampires at Bird Clam. That was Vienna, right? That sounds familiar. Great show, motivates me to practice even more. Pretty sure that was Vienna. That was a crazy crowd. What's the metronome app? that I was saying earlier, you could go to the App Store online on your mobile device, type in metronome, and you'll see several options come up. I've used Subdivide or Metro Timer, but there's lots, and they're free or they're $1 or $2. It's really not that bad. And thanks for doing this. No problem. That's from White Grizz. We appreciate you doing this. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on, chiming in. Definitely subscribe to the channel. There'll be more content coming at you. More stuff with the how to learn songs. I do those for the reason of course, being able to talk about, I have videos up of how to chart out songs. But if I have certain students, it's something for me to refer them to. Like before they come to me, that might be something we'll discuss in the lesson, but I want them to check out some of this stuff online to get sort of a preview of the way that I teach. It's practical stuff. It's how to learn a song. We could talk about rudiments and licks and patterns and beats and double bass. We could talk all about that in a drum lesson or a master class or a clinic, but I always want to have the real world angle. That's sort of my my angle, I guess, just making sure it all goes back to making music and collaborating with people. Anybody can rip on the drums, play a drum solo, upload it to Instagram or whatever, but that's not going to get you a gig. What's going to get you a gig is you playing well with others and having good musical instincts, being able to figure things out on the fly, and that all comes from experience. So it's important to get out there and play with people. So I appreciate it. And yeah, please read my name. That is V.A. Fancula. I can't read that. It's I tried to read the name, but yeah, Kent, I see you there. Thank you. And we'll be back again next week. I appreciate it. And yeah, keep practicing every day. There's something you could do. If you play drums, there's something you could do every day for practice. I keep the drum pad close by, so I could do that while I'm doing something else. But it's important. You have the stick sitting there. It reminds you to practice, right? I'll hopefully get to hit the drums just a little bit before I head out today. But again, thanks, guys. We'll see you hopefully next week. And if there's any questions about videos that are uploaded, feel free to ask, and we can discuss it then. All right. Thanks.